Today we're talking about the Aries full moon, and I feel like this full moon is poised to be a really powerful one. It's poised to be a time of sudden shifts, of manifesting breakthroughs, of really strong spiritual insights, and in this video I'm going to go into exactly why I think that is so. If you are new to my channel, then welcome. My name is Adrianne DeCotes. I'm a manifesting coach and intuitive guide. And on this channel, we talk about things like manifestation, intuition, living in the flow, those kind of things. If that's something that you are interested in, then I invite you to click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you'll be the first to know when I publish new videos about these topics. I really love looking at the full moon in my own manifestation practice because it can really be a time that is like a highlight of the month, as far as it's when things are starting to culminate, sometimes when things are ready to manifest, or at the least it's when you can expect to get new insights and be able to see things a little more clearly than you could before, that leads to some great manifestations down the road. So like always in these forecast videos, I like to start by talking just a little bit about the moon and how I really see it as a planet of manifestation. And the reason why is because, first of all, it's the closest planet to us here on Earth, and it's also the planet that moves the fastest, so making its way through the whole zodiac in about a month's time. And during that time, interacting with all the other planets and all of the planets and points in our birth chart, really acting as like a translator of the energy, both outside of us and within us, and helping to ground and bring that close to home into our experience. And so the full moon is the peak of the moon cycle, or you could think of it as being like the moon at its fullest manifestation, because it's when the moon is at its brightest. And so symbolically, astrologically, that can correspond to a time when things that we have been working on can also be at their peak, especially things that we may have begun or intentions that we may have set around the time of the new moon. And also the full moon can be a great time to be able to see into the dark, just like the full moon in the sky gives an extra amount of light and helps us see at nighttime. Symbolically, that translates to, or energetically, that relates to us being able to like see new insights into situations or into parts of ourselves that are important for us to have greater insight into, so that we can better realize our potential and better manifest what we want. And so for all those reasons and more is why I like to focus on the full moon for these forecasts. One other thing that's cool to know about the full moon is that it's not just a time of manifestation or culmination or having new insights into things that we have started or intentions that we've set at the new moon 2 weeks ago. So that would be the Libra new moon that was on September 25th. You want to be looking to the things that were begun around that time and see how you can connect back to that time with this full moon energy. But you also want to look back 6 months ago at the Aries New Moon, because there's also going to be things that you had begun around that time or intentions that you had set back at the Aries New Moon, which was that was in March. That was March 31st of this year, and also just during Aries season 2, which was March 20th through April 19th. And so thinking back to that time as well can give you some big clues as to what may be really ripe for manifestation or for a new insight into at this time. And also with Aries energy, we want to be paying attention to Jupiter as well, because Jupiter, versus where I spoke earlier, the moon takes a month to go through the zodiac, Jupiter takes 12 years to go through the zodiac. So it spends about a year in each sign. And currently Jupiter is in Aries. It's been there since May of this year. And so since that time, you've had Jupiter in this part of your chart as well, or in this Aries energy. And so you can think back to around May. And since that time, like what have been some of the areas of your life that you've really seen a lot of expansion or growth or more optimism or more willingness to kind of just go for it? Those are all kind of signifiers of Jupiter energy. And then you can connect that into this Aries full moon energy, because it may be a time where you are seeing manifestations or culminations or getting new insights into some of the things that are going on with regard to Jupiter's time in Aries as well. So let's get into the energy more specifically of this Aries full moon by first taking a look at the degree that this full moon is happening on. And so it's happening at 16 degrees of Aries. And let's look at the numerology of that number. So always in numerology, if it's more than a single digit, we just add them together to get the root number, the root vibration. And so a 16 adds up to a 7. And so 7 is the energy signature of the degree for this full moon. And the number 7 in numerology, so first, like the form of the 7, it kind of looks like a lightning strike. And because it is a number of these sudden breakthroughs or epiphanies, it's a number associated with reflection, and which during that time of reflection or of spiritual connection, of meditation, of introspection, you can have these sudden insights or these sudden moments of clarity that can come for you. And just that fact alone, that the full moon's happening at 16 degrees, that's one clue of how this time of the full moon could be associated with these sudden breakthroughs or insights or epiphanies. But there's other reasons too that I will get into as we get a little deeper into that forecast. But that's like the first piece of the puzzle. Now, as we've been speaking about, this full moon is happening in the sign of Aries. So of course we've got to take a look at Aries energy and how that is flavoring this full moon. And so the moon in the sign of Aries, this is the first sign of the zodiac. This is a fire sign. This is a sign that is all about initiating things. It's about just going for it. It's about experimentation and kind of leap before you look, that kind of an energy. And so really at this full moon, you know, kind of to connect it back to like the Libra new moon that we had a couple of weeks ago, that was more of a time of like analyzing and kind of perfecting what you're working on. And so at this point, by the time we get to this Aries full moon, you may have, you know, during Libra season that we're in right now, you may have been, you know, really focused on collecting information and kind of talking to other people about it, because Libra is really others focused. It's really wanting to harmonize and counterbalance with others. And so you may be doing a lot of bouncing ideas back and forth with others, or just kind of mentally in your mind of kind of looking at one side and then looking at the other side in kind of this Libra way. And this Aries full moon is more of a moment where you are going to take a break from a bit of that Libra analysis, and you're just going to put something into action. You're just going to experiment. You're just going to try it. You're just going to go for it. You're going to take some of the ideas of what you've been contemplating and considering, and you're just going to do an experiment and see what happens. And that's going to be the perfect thing to do at this time, because in doing that, it's going to give you more data and more information that you need in order to move forward with what you're wanting to manifest. And so it's a really important time to let yourself kind of take that leap and try something out. And instead of just calculating mentally and analyzing mentally, you get out there and you take action, and that's what helps you to further refine and improve what you're doing. And so that's one of the biggest messages of the full moon and this Aries energy, and how it counterbalances the Libra vibe that we've got going on at this time. And now let's take a look at some of the aspects that are being made to this full moon. So first of all, we have, as always, and kind of as I just touched on a little bit, the full moon is always in opposition between the moon and the sun. And so we have the sun in Libra. We're about halfway through Libra season at this point, and the sun is right next to Venus. So we have on the one hand this bold, fiery Aries full moon, and then on the other side of the sky is the sun and Venus in Libra. And so again, it's just like this counterbalancing between these Libra energies and these Aries energies. And really, because you've got Venus with the sun there, which is just highlighting even more that partnership energy and that wanting things to be pleasant and things to be beautiful and refined and kind of perfected, with this fiery Aries lunar energy that wants to just kind of be more childlike and just kind of go for it, try out your ideas just for learning, for experimentation. And so that's really the duality happening at this time. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm leaning you more towards the Aries energy around the full moons, because through that experimentation and taking action on your ideas, you're going to be able to get valuable data that you can then work with the sun and Venus in Libra to refine and further use to make what you're wanting to manifest even stronger and even better. And the other notable aspect that's happening to the moon at this time is that there is a very supportive sextile from Saturn, which is making a sextile to the moon and a trine to the sun. And so this is a supportive energy from Saturn, which is a planet of practicality, of being able to know your limits and being able to kind of think more groundedly and more strategically and know your boundaries, know your limits. And so it's really supportive because it's kind of in a similar way to where the Libra sun and Venus are counterbalancing this Aries full moon, so it doesn't go like too bold or too big or too crazy with what it's trying to do. The Saturn energy helps you to be able to make what you're experimenting have kind of a practical context in which it will fit within. And so you're going to be able to do these more strategic, practical experiments where you're going to be able to combine the Aries fiery energy that gives you the courage and the boldness to actually do something and not kind of overanalyze, but actually take action, with the Saturn that's going to help you to be able to do the experiments in more of a practical way, or to be able to use what you have discovered through your experiments in more of a grounded, practical way in your life that's going to help contribute to some of your longer term intentions and the growth that you want to see happening in your life. Now let's take a look at any other notable aspects that are happening at this time. And the one that really stands out to me is that about a week ago, Mercury has finally turned direct and is starting to make its way back into Libra. It's not going to get there until the 10th, so just like a day or so after this full moon. But once Mercury gets back into Libra, you're going to be able to really take a look at what's been happening over the past few weeks, because like the retrograde of Mercury is when it goes backwards and over what it's already covered and then goes forwards again. So it covers the same part of the sky 3 times. And so there's really like, for those weeks that this is happening, it's a time of like refining and reviewing and kind of taking a look at what happened and then maybe having to redo it or look at it again. And so this Mercury energy is just going to be really helpful for any of these experiments that you're doing with this Aries energy, these new things that you're trying, or these new ways that you're wanting to innovate or take what you're doing in some slightly different directions. That Mercury is going to help to, it's really going to be helpful to have taken those experiments and have that data with which you can then, with the Mercury, analyze and review and help to improve further what you're doing. And so, yeah, the Mercury is going to be back in that same section of Libra that it's now will be the 3rd time going through. It's that 0 degrees to 8 degree Libra area where it went retrograde. And so between October 11th and 17th is going to be the time frame where you're taking the 3rd pass through something that you have been working on or going over since like around the time August 27th through September 24th was the original kind of time frame through which you were kind of reviewing this area. And so there's a connection coming up between this upcoming span of time and that past time where you're going to be able to, like I was saying, just use the data that you're collecting through these experiments and be able to improve and enhance and analyze with this Mercury what you are working on and make it stronger, make it better. Now let's take a look at Mars, because Mars is the ruler of this Aries full moon, and Mars is currently in Gemini and getting ready to station retrograde more towards the end of the month. And so this is another reason why I'm encouraging experimentation, because Mars is in Gemini, which is definitely kind of similar to Aries in some ways, like this sign of experimentation. Gemini perhaps even more so. And Gemini is really an energy that wants to just maybe go in a lot of different directions and see what's out there, gather the data, collect the insights from exploring and experiencing different things. And so that's again like a really strong thing that's pointing towards this willingness to experiment and just try stuff out and collect data that you can be able to analyze and refine later on. And especially, as I mentioned a little while ago, as Mercury is making its way back into Libra over the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to take a look at these experiments and understand them better and work with them at that time. And then also, like as Mars is doing its retrograde pattern in Gemini, that's going to last all the way through like almost the end of March, I think, next year. And so there really is like a lot of this kind of being willing to try stuff out, to make these experiments and kind of see what happens. And then with the other kind of cycles and things that are in play, and the other energies of the other planets are going to kind of be helpful for taking the data that Mars is helping you gather through this experimentation and be able to use it and refine it and reflect on it. But being willing to get out there and try some new things is going to be what's in order. And also because we're looking at potentially a strong retrograde energy, not just for Mars, but other planets having retrograde energies recently or currently. A lot of times, like what you may be experimenting with is going to be not in a whole new arena than what you have previously done, but it's going to be like taking what you've already gotten started and moving that in a new direction, or like having an experiment around how you can make whatever you're working on stronger or better, or like how you can improve or expand what you're doing in that way. And then the other thing that we need to look at with Mars is that it is coming into a square with Neptune. And so this is something where Neptune is a very spiritual energy. It's a very like all-encompassing energy, kind of an ephemeral energy at times. And so what this can potentially do is, on the negative side, it could add a confusion or kind of a fuzziness to what Mars is trying to do, of trying to explore and experiment, where maybe it feels overwhelming or it feels confusing, or you're not quite sure what direction to go in exactly. And on the positive side, or to kind of counterbalance that, or kind of how maybe the antidote to that situation is, Neptune is really always inviting us to try to expand our thinking and expand how we're looking at a situation, to try to take it into more of a spiritual view, or like a view that sees things from more of an energetic or a spiritual or even like a oneness kind of a perspective. And so for the situations or the things that are happening or manifesting around the time of this full moon, if you can also adopt the lens of like, what is my higher self thinking about this situation, or like, how could I see this situation or see myself from like a higher, more spiritual, more like interconnected, all as one kind of a perspective, that can potentially be the antidote to confusion or to fuzziness or loss of motivation when it comes to Mars. If you can tap into some of that more spiritual sense or deeper meaning or higher purpose, that can be really helpful. And also, like, because this is a square with Neptune, a square is always like a point of tension where something is needing to shift, something is kind of in like a powerful way needing to change or needing to have a breakthrough almost. And because Neptune is like this very spiritual planet, that's again why I'm seeing in this full moon like this energy of potential spiritual breakthrough. So perhaps like with this number 7 energy, you're having some kind of a final like epiphany or breakthrough that leads you to understand exactly where you need to experiment, where you need to explore right now to take what you're doing in the right direction. And maybe you're also kind of having this new insight into the spiritual purpose or the higher purpose around what you're doing, or like a greater sense of how what you're doing connects into a deeper meaning or a deeper level of fulfillment for you. I would love to know how you are feeling about this Aries full moon. If you would like to share how this is landing for you or what's going on in your life around the time of this full moon and how it relates to some of the things we've been talking about in this forecast, definitely leave me a comment down below. We can chat more about this upcoming full moon down there if you would like to. All right, let's take a look at what some of our key takeaways might be from this full moon. So probably not going to be surprising because I've been talking about it for most of this forecast, but definitely the first one is to be willing to experiment, to kind of just do it, to put your ideas that you've been analyzing and kind of perfecting over the past few weeks or longer into action so that you can have some new experiences and collect some data that's going to be really useful to what you're wanting to manifest. And then the second key takeaway, I think, is to, as we were just speaking about with Neptune, keep that spiritual perspective in mind and go to that higher plane of consciousness whenever things start to feel a little confusing or you're feeling maybe not as motivated or something like this. Look there, like be open to that perspective. See if you can see things through the eyes of source, the eyes of your higher self. Just like practice adopting that lens and see if that causes a shift or a new insight. And really around this time, be open to these kinds of new breakthroughs in awareness. Maybe take a little extra time for meditation, for self-reflection, for like a walk in nature or something like that. Whatever kind of helps you to relax your mind and kind of be more open to these downloads of new insight or new information, because I think they could definitely be manifesting in abundance around the time of this full moon. If you would like more manifesting tips and tricks and inspo from me, then definitely consider downloading my free guide to the 7 habits of highly magical people. I will place a link to that in the description box down below in case you would like to request your free copy. And if you are looking for extra insight and support and psychic guidance around what you're wanting to manifest, I offer psychic readings. And currently I'm having a special offer on my readings, and they're actually a little extra special. They're different than like a normal psychic reading because they also involve some coaching work that we will do together as well. So the first step of kind of this psychic reading experience is that we will work together over email, or WhatsApp is the other method that I like to use with clients, to really take a look at what is your core, true, authentic desire that you want to manifest right now. And I will help you get clear on that and then turn it into an intention statement. So craft your perfect fit intention is what I like to call it. So that'll be the first thing we'll do together. And then next, we'll use that intention as a basis for a 60-minute psychic reading phone session where, using your intention, I'll be able to tune in and talk to your higher self and help you kind of get these insights and highlight things that probably your intuition has already been saying to you, but you may be overlooking, or ignoring or like discounting. I'll help validate some of those things for you and help you see some things that maybe you're not aware of about what is happening within you regarding your intention and how you can like kind of shift your thinking, shift how you're approaching your intention to get better results in manifesting what you want. And then finally, the third part of this special psychic reading kind of experience is that we will then work together for 15 days after the session, and I'll help you to apply the guidance that came through in the reading into your life so that you're starting to create new habits and you really are able to ground some of the changes that happened with the reading and use that to manifest new results in your life. So it's a very special kind of experience, and yeah, I'm happy to offer that at a special, as I mentioned right now. So the special offer is that if you use the code Aries Full Moon at checkout when you book your reading between now and the day of the full moon, so October 9th, between now and October 9th at midnight Eastern, you can save $100 on the session. And I'll place all of this information in the description box down below, or rather I'll place a link to learn more about the session, so you can find that in the description box below this video if you are interested. Thank you so much for joining me for this full moon forecast today. Until next time, happy manifesting.